In 2024, fans of the Persona series were treated to the release of a remake of the third entry in this long and very popular JRPG series with Persona 3 Reload. The original Persona 3 was released on the PlayStation 2 in 2006 and had several re-releases in the form of Persona 3 Fez and Persona 3 Portable. But with the success and visual overhaul of their big hit called Persona 5, it was later decided that the game that started it all would be remade to better reflect where the series had gone. The game was published by both Sega and Atlus and was developed by P Studio, who have been developing many of the Persona game spin-offs since 2012. And since the original Persona 3 was my very first entry all the way back in 2015, it's about time I wake up and get up and tell you about this game. Hey, my name is Jude, and if you've never burned your dread before, then I'm here to tell you what is Persona 3 Reload.
Oh, the journey starts from where we did first step. Loud and clear the story of the ones with me. Exploring Italy, we saw the time. No one should need it for me to a way of life. No matter how far, how you go, how short is the race. This journey
So let's get that story out of the way, shall we? The game takes place at Gekkoukan High School, where we're introduced to our transfer student protagonist. But things immediately go wrong as the clock strikes 12 and we're introduced to this kid who clearly just broke out of prison, where we're introduced to Yukari, who is packing some major heat.
Aw, she's so f***ing cute! Oh, she's packing heat!
And things only escalate further from there, where in the middle of the night, we're attacked by these shadowy creatures called, the Shadows. Not sure what I was expecting there. Thanks to the power of Gun, our protagonist picks a god in praise as we awaken to our persona. Or two personas, I should say. And because our mom lets us have two personas, we're recruited into a group known as C's, who tell us that the shadows only come out during what's known as the Dark Hour, which is a secret 25th hour that only occurs at midnight. During the Dark Hour, our high school turns into this giant tower called Tartarus. On top of that, we also find out that once every full moon, stronger shadows will appear to wreak havoc upon the world. And C's is given the task of defeating all 12 shadows to bring an end to the Dark Hour, while also exploring Tartarus, reach the top of said building, and ultimately kill God with the power of friendship. Now, the cast of characters is what really makes this game so well loved. Several fans of the series began with this game and found its narrative and characters very intriguing to follow along. But just as a heads up though, Persona 3 can be a really depressing game. If the fact that you gun yourself in the head wasn't a big red flag, the game's overarching theme involves death and overcoming loss. A majority of the cast deal with devastating losses close to them that led up to the events of the game. But despite watching several of their loved ones perish, they're able to find the strength to not succumb to despair and continue living on, knowing that there's a new purpose in their lives. So while the story may have its sad and despairing moments, it ultimately manages to prove that life is still worth living despite all the loss and suffering. The game ultimately teaches us that death is a natural part of life. Everyone we know is going to pass away eventually, and that's okay. What matters is that we carry on, knowing those who have gone ahead of us would be happy knowing that we press forward and live on to live out the rest of our lives. And taking into account the ending of the game, which further reinforces these themes, it's hard not to cry a little when the credits finally roll. On top of that, many of the game's famous scenes from the original have been updated and given a complete overhaul, giving these moments that were so well remembered even more meaning and impact than their originals. There are also a few new scenes to further flesh out characters that lack screen time in the original, such as Shinji and Takaya. So if you're looking for a story with a strong cast of characters and a plot that will absolutely tear you up at the end, but will also make you want to live out life to the fullest potential, look no further. So Persona 3 Reload has a great story and all, but what about the gameplay part? You'll be spending your days doing high school shenanigans during the day, while also dungeon crawling your way through Tartarus during the Dark Hour. You'll be playing as the protagonist throughout the game, who will be spending his year at Gekkoukan balancing friendships while also developing his social stats. Developing social stats will unlock social links, which can then be used to level up your personas even faster. There are 10 ranks of social links to level up, and you'll learn more about these socially awkward teenagers the further you level them up. There are 19 social links in total to manage, and they all have varying backstories and personalities to follow along with. But not all the social links are available right off the bat though, because that would be mad overwhelming. Thankfully, the game gives you plenty of time to rank them up throughout your year. So try not to get overwhelmed on how gosh darn popular your transferred hiney butt is, no matter how much they beg and plead for your attention. So despite how many people there are, not all the social links are diamond dogs, if you know what I mean. The social links in this game range from some high highs and some moonwalking lows. The first social link you'll come across is Kenji of the Magician Arcana, and this kid has some major teacher issues. Kenji's social link revolves around him describing his romantic interest in teachers, and he goes so far as to try and date one. Ugh. If only he was in Fire Emblem 3 Houses, then he could totally have support his teach. Then there's Bunkichi and Mitsuko of the Hierophant's Arcana, an elderly couple whose story involves them confiding about the loss of their son. They're somewhat the better socials in the game, as you help them overcome the loss of their only son who planted a persimmon tree at the school. Then there's Bebe of the Temperance Arcana. He's a transfer student from France who wants to stay in Japan after his aunt passes away, and goes to great lengths to convince his uncle to let him stay and appreciate more of the culture of Japan. And then there's amazing commodities himself, Tanaka, who is a CEO of the Devil Arcana. Huh, so you're the reason why we can't get Coyote vs. Acme. Maya of the Hermit Arcana is a gamer girl who loves playing MMOs and drinking her problems away, while also falling in love with us, even though she's a teacher. What is with this game of teachers, dude? And then there's Nozomi of the Moon Arcana, one of the worst socialings in the entire game. His story involves you playing suck up to this guy, who munches his problems away. That's actually about it. Oh, and he tries to get you to join this totally real cult near the end, and all he wants is for you to give him the 3 digits of the back of your parents' credit card. Next! But then we have one of the best and saddest social links in the form of Akinari of the Sun Arcana. Akinari's story follows him trying to find something to do with what little time he has left before he passes away from a terminal disease. And he settles on writing a story called The Pink Alligator, which will go on to be well remembered by children across the country. We'll never forget you, Akinari. There are also automatic social links like the Death and Fool Arcana, so you won't have to worry about ranking those up unless the story progresses further enough. Now, there are also social links involving the ladies of your dormitory, like Mitsuru, Yukari, Fuka, and Igus. Now, you can romance any of the girls, but you better stick to one, you hear me? You see, in the original Persona 3, you were forced to romance all of the ladies to max out every single social link. In Reload, you can friend zone any of them or none of them. But if you do, you're gonna regret it. While we're on the subject, when selecting dialogue choices, please don't be a jerk, because then you'll lose access to that social link, and now you have to spend all that time fixing that friendship. And congratulations, you just wasted a whole day being a horrible scumbag. Good job. Let's talk about the social stats now, don't we? There are 3 stats to level up in the game. There's Courage, Academics, and Charm. They can be leveled up 6 times with differing tiers that will help you throughout the school year. You can increase your social stats by doing a wide variety of activities, like studying, working at local restaurants, labbing in Marvel vs. Capcom, looking at the dark web. You can also spend time with your teammates at the dormitory and study your heart out to grind those academics. So if you play your cards right and balance your schedule properly, you can max out your social stats really fast to get those higher tier social links. You can also raise social stats by hanging out with various party members to make up for the fact that they don't have a social link to level up. These are called linked episodes, and they're absolutely worth the time investment. And most of these only take about 4 times to finish up, so they won't take too long. One last thing to mention is that within Polonia Mall, there are a variety of shops to run around and buy things that will help you with the later part of the game, such as the medical shop for healing items, the police station where you can buy accessories, weapons, and armor for your party, and lastly, there's the antique shop. This lady here can trade materials found in Tartarus for some very good items, like better weapons and armor than the police station can offer, and skill cards that can be used to equip on your personas to make them even better. And now it's time to talk about what happens when the lights go down in the city. It's time we went down to the 25th hour, the Dark Hour. Tartarus has changed drastically since its PS2 days, and this Tower of Babel will test all your skills. First things first, let's break down the combat of Reload. Persona 3 uses the game formula of the One More system, where you find the enemy's weakness to get out of a turn in battle. You can also do what's called Turn Shift, which will let you pass to another teammate in order to continue exploiting the Shadow's weakness. And once all of them are down, you can go for an all-out attack to put the kibosh on them deaders. There's also the new addition of Theurgies. These will fill up depending upon what your character does during combat, like using physical and elemental attacks, healing allies, buffing allies, etc. And boy howdy, they're a spectacle to behold. Most of the party will learn up to 2 Theurgies, with the exceptions of Shinji and the protagonist, because Shinji only learns 1, while Protag over here gets up to 7. Now it's time to go over the party members you'll be leveling up in this long adventure. Your player character is by far the best of the group. He can equip multiple personas at once and will progressively unlock more slots to hold even more personas. He can also learn various new abilities to run around faster and sneak up on shadows more effectively via the shared computer at the dormitory. Because unlike the other members of SEES here, Protag here is no mere caveman, for he has technology.
Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology!
Also, the protagonist is the only one who can enter what's known as the Velvet Room, which is where you'll be fusing your personas to use in the real world and the Dark Hour. And be sure to fuse as many of these as you can, because you can get several level boosts if your social links are high enough. Next there's Yukari. She's your first proper healer of the game who specializes in wind magic, and is pretty good at the start. Yukari can fall off slightly compared to other healers later on, however, though having access to bows and status heals keeps her from being utterly useless. Then there's the ace defector himself, Junpei Iori. Junpei is the proper DPS, able to dish out some nice fire spells while also having access to some strong physical attacks, as well as Rakukaja, which can increase your party's defense for 3 turns. However, you'll quickly unlock one of the best members of SEES, Akihiko, who's been waiting for this. He does a lot of what Junpei does, but just a little better. Akihiko does a lot of damage. Akihiko can learn some strong lightning spells, but can also learn some great physical buffs and even healing spells to keep the party going. Not to mention, he gets some of the coolest looking Theurgies in the whole game. Next, you've got Mitsuru, who specializes in ice attacks, a few debuffs. That's actually about it. Oh yeah, and Baron Karen, which can charm a foe. Sometimes. Most times it doesn't though. The amount of memes of Mitsuru spamming Marin Karen speaks for itself. But if you're really into kneeling before her, it might as well bring Mitsuru along. Fuka, on the other hand, is your proper navigator of the game. She can scan enemies' weaknesses to help make battles so much faster. On top of that, when leveled up, she can learn various skills to help make traversal through the floors of Tartarus much more manageable. For example, when you come across the greedy shadows here, she can just straight up tell you where it ran off to instead of having to just guess where it went. Girl's got that 20/20 vision, bro. On top of that, when Theurgia skills are unlocked, hers will grant you multiple bonuses of the party, like buffs, heals, and even a ton of SP refills. She can get equipment just like everyone else in the party to buff her stats, so don't forget to buy her gear. Next, we have Igus, my personal favorite member of the SEES team. While she may lack any elemental skills, she has access to some of the best physical attacks in the entire game, as well as multiple attack buffs and self-healing skills like Diarahan. She has a unique Theurgia skill called Orgia mode, which lets her go all onga bonga and rocket across the sky, bringing down the tactical nuke on those shadows, though she can't be commanded for 3 turns afterwards and will be unusable for 1 more turn. So be sure to be smart and use this power wisely. Oh, and in her second Theurgy, she becomes a real American and shows her love for guns and hating kilometers. Next up, there's Koromaru, who is a dog that also, has a persona. Okay. As the first of the Persona mascots, and the best one, he has access to some decent fire and dark skills, along with a few insta-kill spells to boot. His best Theurgy allows him to buff the party with a free mind and power charge. Dang, Koromaru got that dowel in him. The next character, Kent Amada, is a bit different though. He joins at the half point of the game, and he's not that bad of a choice either. Kent has access to spheres to make up for his short reach, as well as access to great support skills like Meteorahan and Samarikarm. So he's a bit of a jack of all trades kind of guy. Though he may not be the best healer in the game, due to his weakness of darkness insta-kills, he can be very viable for certain team compositions in the game. Lastly, there's Shinji, and I saved him for last because there's not much to go over for him. Shinji is not in the party for very long, and only has access to physical spells, but dang does he hit like a freight train. His raw attack strength is incredible for this portion of the game, and he can use the spell Bloody Charge to boost his damage even further. So he may be a bit of a glass cannon, but he can bonk that good old no good Dirty Dan any day.
Which one of you fellers is the real Dirty Dan?
And now it's time to go over the tower battle itself, Tartarus. There are 5 major blocks to run around in, all of which are visually different from one another. You run around, beat up the shadows, find their weaknesses, exploit said weaknesses, go for all-out attacks, find the stairs, etc. Despite how daunting this tower may be at first glance, you can find these checkpoints in the form of teleporters to bring you back to the entrance to regroup and save your progress. Though there will be points where you'll run into what's called a border floor, and now you have to wait until you made it past the next full moon cycle before you can climb further up the tower. So in other words, go home. Now, the regular shadows are nothing to write home about, but if you want to get some grinding done, hunt down those golden looking hands called, gold hands. They may dodge better than Gohan and DBZ, but when they go down, they give a lot of EXP, which is the best way to level up your party early on in the game. Compared to the original, there's a lot of new things to do in Tartarus. You can find these crystal looking things on the floors to acquire some extra materials, like the Twilight Fragments, which can be used to unlock certain chests for extra goodies and refill your HP and SP at the entrance. So save as many of these as you can, as this stuff will add up over time. Another new addition are the Monad Doors, which will randomly appear within Tartarus, where you can fight mini-bosses to gain extra goodies to use in the real world, like materials to forge some of the best equipment in the game. There are also these special Monad Doors on top of a border floor, where you can fight stronger optional bosses for some extra tarot cards that can be added to the shuffle times at the end of the battle. And then we have the bosses. We'll start with the floor bosses since we're still in Tartarus. There are a lot of these bad boys, and boy howdy, they are a pain in the butt. They're generic enemies repurposed as mini bosses, and there's just so many of them. On top of that, there are floor bosses back to back in certain blocks of Tartarus. Well, that's that floor done in... Wait a minute, how long have you been on this floor? Uh-oh.
It's reading! It's the Reaper!
Yes, how could I leave Tartarus without mentioning the most threatening of all shadows, that being the dual-wielding long-barrel revolver himself, the Reaper. When the player reaches June 13th, Fuka will warn you about the danger of the Reaper, a powerful shadow that will appear if the player stays too long on one floor of Tartarus. Let's just say that if you're not at endgame, when you see him, you better start running, boy. The Reaper is packing just about every spell in the game, as well as having a second turn to mess you up. On top of that, he will always go for your party's weaknesses to give him another freaking turn. He also has a lot of health and, oh, he can follow you to the next floor. Of course he can. But the rewards are absolutely worth it though, as he'll drop the Bloody Button material, which is worth a lot of money, and is required to unlock the most hardest boss in the game, Elizabeth. Yeah, good luck with her. Next, we have the Full Moon bosses. There are 8 of these in total, and all of them have some kind of gimmick you need to work around. You can scan the boss to find their weakness, if they have one, and then go to town on those clowns. Some noteworthy full moons include the Priestess Shadow, which is the first major boss you come across that involves a high-speed train section, the Cherry and Justice Shadows, since they can come together to form the Megazord, along with the Hermit Shadow, since this is the only boss Shinji can participate in, and the Strength and Fortune Shadows, because who doesn't love a game of Wheel of Fortune, am I right?
Oh no.
There's also fights against the edgy Hot Topic wannabes with Strega, a group of rogue Persona users who are too cool for school and show up to just ruin your day. These guys are pathetically easy. They do so little damage that it's hilarious how much these guys love to ramble on about how mighty they are. Chidori is more of a scripted fight than a proper boss. In fact, I go so far as to say she's the easiest fight in the whole game. Jin brings grenades to the trio. Oh, and a nice attaché case too. Bro thinks he's landing from RE4. What a loser. And their leader Takaya is packing heat with the power of gun and well, that's about it. In reality, they're just warm-ups for the final boss. The only noteworthy thing about them is that in Reload, they can turn shift just like you can during battle. Man, if only there was a DLC boss that would have you fight all 3 at once. Okay, so let's go over some tips and fun facts about the game, shall we? The game is very forgiving in that you can go into the menu and select what's called the rewind function, which will roll back the game a few days in case you want to try and do something else on a particular day. The Elizabeth requests are absolutely worth going your way out for. These can earn you different costumes, Twilight fragments, and lots of money. Within the dorm, you can check out this giant computer and view recordings of characters in their rooms. That's not an invasion of privacy or anything. You can plant vegetables with your party members to get great items that can restore your HP and SP in battle. The player's Theurgy skill Armageddon is absolutely busted. It does 9,999 damage to all foes, meaning it will one-shot every enemy and boss in the whole game. Except for Elizabeth, because she's rocking over 20,000 HP. Again, good luck with that. Before heading into Tartarus, you can go to the club at Polonia Mall in the evening and request a reading from the local fortune teller, which can increase the odds of gold hand spawning, the Theurgy refills, and even making the Reaper not spawn at all. Whenever you open a locked chest, there's a random chance that a Great Clock will spawn on the same floor. This can allow the members of Siege to catch up in levels for the next battle. The game has a lot, and I mean a lot of DLC, such as background music from Persona 4 and 5, as well as costumes of the Phantom Thieves from P5 as well. There are also personas from previous games, and boy howdy, they are busted. Several people will go missing after wandering into Tartarus, and you better make time to go and rescue them, because if you don't before a full moon, they're gone forever. And some of them are your social links, so you better go find them. On Sundays, you can check out the TV and find the channel known only as Tanaka's Amazing Commodities.
I hate this channel.
So hopefully this video has given you a good idea as to what this game is and how it plays. If you wish to purchase this game, it is now available on PS5, Xbox, and PC. But if you want to try your hand at the previous version, Persona 3 Portable is the game that also is available on all platforms. And then you play it and wonder, why did Atlas not bother with the FMC for the remake? Persona 3 Reload brings back one of the best JRPGs on the PS2 into the modern era, with tons of quality of life improvements, visual upgrades, and new additions that make this the best version of the game to experience. It was many people's very first Persona game before P5 happened and took the series in a bold new direction that is now Atlas's fastest selling game of all time. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you have a blessed day. Take care.